Anyway, you remember Shirley Sherrod, right? She was the woman whose speech before the NAACP 20 years ago was excerpted on Breitbart.com. Showed her making some racially provocative comments about how she doesn't like white folks and didn't help white folks when she could avoid it. Then later in the speech, she says, but I learned that was bad, and then I helped some white folks.
And they are lifelong friends.
And then if you listen to the rest of the speech, you definitely get the idea she doesn't like white folks much. But that's the context, outside the context. And you know what? An idiot woman who doesn't like white people that much or, tolerates them and feels enlightened about it. All right, fine. I don't care. Screw you. I don't care. But the really interesting part of this to me is this story has brought to light a long ignored, fairly obscure legal case that you may have heard, Pigford v. Glickman.
I'm not familiar.
In 1997, 400 African-American farmers sued the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, alleging they'd been unfairly denied loans due to racial discrimination between 1983 and 1997. 400 black farmers say, you're giving white farmers loans who had the same circumstance as us. Bastards! So they sued. The farmers won the case, known as Pigford v. Glickman. In 99, the government agreed to pay...
You're a farmer named Pigford?
Yes. It's lovely, isn't it? The government agreed to pay $50,000 each to any farmer who'd been wrongly denied an agricultural loan. By then, though, you remember the case was filed 2 years earlier. By then, it had grown into a class action case, and any black farmer who'd filed a complaint between 83 and 97 would be given at least $50,000. Not limited to the original 400 plaintiffs. It was estimated at the time that there might be as many as 2,000 beneficiaries granted $50,000 each. Because all you had to do was file a complaint, never mind the validity of that complaint. Now, according to a summary of the case from a legal website, which name I have misplaced, anyway, originally, claimants were to have filed within 180 days of the consent decree. Late claims were accepted for an additional year afterward, et cetera, et cetera. Far beyond the anticipated 2,000 affected farmers, 22,505 Track A applications were heard and decided upon, of which 13,500 were approved. $995 million has been dispersed or credited to these Track A applicants as of January of last year. Beyond those applications that were heard and decided, some 70,000 petitions were filed later, not allowed to proceed. But February 23rd of this year, for reasons nobody's entirely clear on, the USDA finally consented to pay $1.25 billion to those almost 70,000 claims that were filed earlier. Problem: during the time being discussed, the U.S. Census clearly shows there were about 40,000 black farmers, period. 70,000 plus applicants in addition to the 16,000 already compensated now means that over 86,000 people are slated to be paid this government money.
So twice as many as there were any farmers.
That's right. At least.
Wonder what you have to
Never mind as many. Keep in mind, plenty of them didn't apply for any USDA loans. Mm-hmm. Plenty of them got accepted for USDA loans. And it's twice as many as there were.
Wonder what you have to do to qualify to be a farmer in the first place.
Here's one more. Well, I don't know. You've got a big old garden, right?
How big a garden do you have to have before you get to call yourself a farmer, I wonder?
Got a handful of... I got a dog and a fish. Am I a farmer?
Right.
Which brings us to today, when two current events thrust this otherwise little-known case into the spotlight. First, the Senate stripped funding for the settlement out of an unrelated war appropriations bill, as they've done several times in the past. Secondly, it was revealed that a farm collective owned by Shirley Sherrod and her husband that was forced out of business by the discriminatory practices, allegedly, received a $13 million settlement as part of Pigford last year, just before she was hired by the USDA. This goes on for several more pages. By the way, the original case, it's pretty well believed, was legitimate. There was some discrimination going on. People couldn't get loans if they were black. But
And so how does this fit into Shirley Sherrod?
She got the largest settlement, $13 million.
Because she and her husband are farmers?
Yeah. Well, they owned some sort of socialist farm collective where bunches of people worked on the farm, et cetera, because she's a big believer in that sort of thing. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. It's a government program. It's a lawsuit spun wildly out of control to the tune of $1 billion some dollars.
Well, and how often does that happen? I'll bet that happens all the time on, if it's not farmers, it's people who rode Amtrak or took some drug or who knows what.
Right. One commenter to this massive expose says, it's reparations. That's what it is, reparations under a different name. And nobody was willing to stand up against it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Stay with us. You are listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show.